Today, we are talking about the complexity of vehicles on the road today. And man, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. We're talking about the importance of transparency, which means documentation. Oh, so many people puckered right there. Ooh, no. I'm telling you, this is a good episode. I'm talking with Michael Giarrizzo, CEO and president of DCR Systems, and we're talking about embracing the change. Our industry is changing and so many people are shying away from it. How can you embrace the change in your shop? There's so many good takeaways. Get a pad, get a pen. You're going to want to take notes. Check it out.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Body Bangin' Podcast. Welcome. If you have never been before, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. You can actually hit that notifications bell and you'll be alerted every time a new video drops. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whatever your favorite flavor is, you can also follow us on there. And even on Apple Podcasts, you can give us a rating. So if you're loving it, make sure you give us a shout out. But today we are going to talk to my good buddy. I see him at every event I go to. He and his wife are the nicest people. They have the greatest team. They're doing awesome things in the industry. I've got Michael Giarrizzo on with me today. Hello.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Pam is, she's definitely the better half. You know, a lot of people thank Pam.
Yeah.
Maybe it's mellow me or something. I don't know.
She's a doll.
But no, it's a pleasure to be
her.
here. I think it's been a couple of years, I think. And last time I was on, I had a fall and an accident. So I was a little bit on the mend.
That's
right. We're looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Michael was on before, and I'll put the link to that interview below. And Michael, just so you guys know, if you're like, who is this guy? Well, first of all, he's awesome, obviously, but he is the president and CEO of DCR Systems, and they're a collision repair group, I guess you would call yourselves. They have 6 shops that they own, but then also 4 licensee shops, which is really cool that you offer that to people because you've, like your name says, you put in place these systems to really create a high functioning, highly efficient shop. And rather than somebody going out and having to start from scratch and figure out all the things, they can really be a part of what you guys are doing and run it on their own and have their own identity to some degree with it, which is so cool. Love that for you guys.
Yeah, it is super cool. Allows us to expand the DCR family. But
yeah,
the thing that's really been eye-opening is it helps us understand what we do well and what we don't do so well, and work on those things. Because when you give somebody else your playbook, you got to work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But we do things so different that if somebody wants to go down that path and really break out of a more traditional operating model, which we think really has its benefits, especially as the vehicle complexity just continues to explode.
Yes.
Then we could help, and a few of our licensees have said, I don't want to reinvent something that's already invented. I'd rather have it and then help enhance it. And we do expect that from all of our people and all of our licensed stores as well. It's about that continuous improvement.
Right.
The principles don't change, but the operating model specifics are always going to be open to change and improve. So it's really been a cool experience.
Oh, I bet. And then Michael and the team also has a calibration center. So you've gotten into calibrations, looking to open up more, which is really kind of leads us into one of the things. I mean, just so you guys know, Michael and I are friends on Facebook, and he had posted how he recently spoke at the Axo Nobel conference, and he was sharing with some of the topics that he talked about. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I want to talk about all of those. So it kicks us off, really, that statement with you and all the things that you guys do, and moving into the ADAS calibration department of all of this is the complexity of vehicles today. And I know that's one thing that you spoke about. So I'll kick it over to you so you can talk a little bit about that, because we're all facing the issues of this complexity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got into the calibration business, by the way, just because we wanted to ensure that we were delivering a safe vehicle back.
Yeah.
And we were subletting the calibrations out, and they were coming back with, one line calibrated with zero documentation. And then we learned more about the calibration environment. And where we were sending them really didn't even have that environment. So we first and foremost got into it to make sure that we are actually delivering a safe and proper repair with a validated proper calibration as well.
All the way through.
Yes, absolutely. And so we'll add locations, calibration centers in and or around our current locations.
Right.
To first serve them. But yeah, the complexity, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm going to say this. This is my 40th anniversary of full-time in the industry today.
Wow. 40 years?
That's insane. I can't even believe that.
Insane.
So May the 12th, 1984, I graduated from St. Bonaventure University in Western New York. And of course, there was no break after that with Dad. You were right to work. And I had been working every break, and every vacation and summer vacations for, since high school.
Right.
But this marked now full time. And okay, the career was launched back then. And now 40 years later, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It doesn't seem that long ago. I was the young guy in the room.
Yeah.
And I like to say I've been in it since when a bad repair was just ugly, right?
Yeah.
The quarter pan was a little wavy, the color match wasn't any good, but nobody got hurt. And now you could have what could be viewed as a pretty repair. We've seen some beautiful color matches, even some pretty good fit and finish. But when you peel back that onion, you get into the interior of the repair, structural damage, left unaddressed, improper welds, missing welds, lack of corrosion protection, blind spot monitors not working, all this stuff going on that we've seen in some of the post-repair inspections that we've done. And we don't do those formally, but when somebody's persuaded away from our location, we're going to offer them that at no charge and to come back and as a courtesy.
Yeah.
But, if you think about it today, 2024, if we fast forward to 2030, and you're going to buy your, spouse or daughter, whomever, 2027 Camry, say, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's 3 years in advance in technology from where we are today.
Right.
That's a pretty scary world, especially with, the lack of consistent documentation, across the industry. And so how do you buy that car without understanding it in detail? It's history.
Right.
So we're really going into a whole different world. We really are, where we're going into, and in all the events, you hear the buzz about liability and, the complexity and safety systems and all this. And obviously it's just accelerating.
Yeah.
So, we have to, as an industry, be on a game. That's an important responsibility.
Yeah.
Super important. And it doesn't take a whole lot, to have a vehicle that could be deemed unsafe.
Yes.
It's just, I think it's so detail oriented today, and requiring of that education and training and that willingness to read.
Yeah.
We're sponsors of a local trade school, which is a really cool trade school. And I just love going over there and speaking to some of the students, and they asked the class, what do you think is one of the most important skills. And I said, well, one is reading. Today, experience could be your greatest challenge and can actually get in the way, of your thought process. And
great point.
You hear it at every industry event about how fast the procedures are changing.
Yes.
And the reality is that technology sometimes is coming out ahead of repair procedures.
Yeah.
And then the repair procedures are out, and maybe they're not optimal. And so they're being constantly developed. And if you're not really pulling procedures at the time that you're doing the repairs and documenting, hey, these are the procedures I pull at this given place in time, then you're probably missing something on the documentation. And hopefully that doesn't, come back to bite you in some type of a malfunction of the repair or some type of liability issue.
For sure.
So, reading, the willingness not only to pull the procedures, every vehicle before you put the first wrench on it or tool on it is, I think one of the most critical things. And then actually read them and interpret them. And obviously there's systems that are coming out that are making that easier versus, you still have to do it to some extent, going through dozens and dozens of pages of documents just to find, okay, this is what I need to address.
Well, and that kind of leads me to a question, if you don't mind me interrupting you, because the kickback I'm hearing from a lot of shops, because I think you and I are both of the same mindset that it's very frustrating that shops are choosing to not be looking up the repair procedures. And what I'm hearing from a lot of shops when they're talking about this is it takes too much time. It takes too much time to find the documentation, access the documentation, read through the documentation. So for them to quickly get to the repair and get it going and start pushing it through the shop, they're foregoing this step. I always say, what are you going to get if you don't? Like, what is the ramification when you don't? Yes, it takes time. But if you don't pull the repair procedures, what is the long-term effect of that? So doesn't that make it worth it to spend the time? But I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. Because I'm sure you come up against the same thing and the same pushback.
Yeah, so our people are compensated different than most of the industry.
Okay.
Not all of it, but all of our people are operating expense. So we really try and incentivize around a safe and proper repair to a satisfied customer that doesn't have to return for something that's not working properly, something like that. You talk about the time that it takes to research and read procedures and get prepared for it, and it's just a industry change. It's a business change that's upon us. If you really make the analogy to the medical industry, you hope that they're doing their research ahead of time. They're not just going to wing it, and,
right.
So it's just become a different world. And, growing up in the business, it was all about your experience. It was all about, how many years you had as a, journeyman technician or more appropriate craftsman back then. Repairing the unrepairable was what made you, a standout and above the rest. And, we've even gone through that transformation in our business. It's been some years now with moving the mindset from is something repairable to should it be repaired? Because virtually about everything, especially when you come into outer body panels, about anything is repairable if you're looking to get it to look right again.
Right.
But, now it's a matter of, should it be repaired? And a lot of that decision is going to be made by, how is the metal damaged and is it folded or torn or things like that? Its integrity and strength and its contour is now lost.
Yes.
So it's really changing the whole mindset. And that's part of the reason why we try and have our people, all on the same page of really what our goal is, what we're trying to do. And that safe and proper repair, drum that home. We drum that home, and you can't, fit and finish inspections at the end of a job still should be done, but that's not a qualification use program. That's not a quality,
right?
Because again, in the post repair inspections that we've done, or if you believe the study that was done at CIC, where 23 out of 26 cars totaled.
Yes.
You can, it's sad, but you can believe it in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, some shops, and some situations don't really even know that maybe they're delivering a vehicle that's technically not safe because something wasn't done correctly. So it's time that has to be taken. It's absolutely has to be taken. Whether you're getting paid for it or not, it's time that has to be taken. And we've made our own mistakes, and we get humbled as well, and we put really all of our emphasis on that. So I can't imagine, in a more traditionally run shop, how difficult that is to try to assure that vehicle is being built, reconstructed, and finished the way that it was intended to by the manufacturer.
Well, and you brought up a really good point that I think is missing for a lot of shops is, why are we doing what we're doing? What is our mission here? And continuing to discuss that with the team, keeping it top of mind, because then it becomes, why are we doing what we do here? To fix this person's car, to get them back in the car as fast as possible and hope to God they don't come back. It's like, no, that's not a mission statement. That is not why is that really why you want to be doing what you're doing? I mean, really, at the end of the day, just forcing that car through production just to kick it out, good or bad. I mean, I think it's like a morality thing. You keep, like, once you know, you can't not know. That's how I feel.
Sure. One thing that's really bothersome to me, number one, the statistics that are coming out about our industry and the faulty repairs. And so if you can believe anything close to that CIC study, that's pretty alarming. That's not pretty alarming. There's no other industry on the planet to survive at that failure rate.
Yes.
By the way, that study is going to be expanded to over 100 cars.
Oh, good.
And I believe presented in Denver in July.
Great.
So that's bothersome to me, that part of it. The other part, on the opposite end of it, the percentage of shops that are really committed to procedures, they're committed to certification, they're committed to putting every effort to deliver safe and proper repair, guided by the manufacturer. But they believe that there's only one way to repair these vehicles today, and that's the way the manufacturer says to repair them.
Yeah.
They don't get credit for it today. Other than their own credit and knowing that they put a guest, back in a safe and proper repair. It's not a glory position, which is wrong.
Agree.
If you go on Carfax and the vehicle has an accident report, everybody goes, oh. In fact, pre-pandemic, the dealers wouldn't even take them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the perception of our industry is that a big percentage of the time, it's probably not going to be a good repair.
Yeah.
And that's a shame as well. So if you are trying to do it correctly, and there are a lot of shops out there that are, how do you get better credit for that? And that's where I'm so passionate about transparency and how we have to become transparent as an industry.
Yeah.
Where not only everything that needed to be done to the vehicle is explicitly detailed out, but also verification that it was in fact done.
Right.
And that they say you can proper repair. And wouldn't it be cool one day is if you could go on Carfax and find a vehicle and it has an accident report, but yet it had this application, this electronic storyboard of that accident. And you took it to your professional and they said, well, an OE fender and bumper, headlight, had a little bit of structural damage, structural alignments here, it's back in structural alignment. Here's the certificate of calibration with it. I don't see.
Right. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Versus today, it's like, man, everybody gets apprehensive over that accident report because of the reputation that the industry's built, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you talked about the importance of documentation in your talk with AXO. And I think this is part of it. In order to have transparency, there needs to be documentation so that everybody knows.
We developed in-house a pretty cool software application. And it was actually by two former technicians that had grown into master repair planners and actually leading stores, but one by trade is a master level structural technician. These are young guys, and the other one's a master level refinish technician by trade. But they're part of our leadership team and our store support team. And we proposed a dilemma to our group and to another development firm of this whole documentation challenge. And how do we create documentation that's easy to understand and that validates that it was done correctly?
Yeah.
The firm that we talked to, they're like, I don't know if we can do something like that, or if if that's important to anyone. This was 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
And two guys called me up later that day and said, we could hear and feel the disappointment. We're all disappointment.
Yeah.
But we feel we can build this ourselves. And I'm like, really? How are we doing that? Right. And they're going,
yeah.
And Andy says, well, Harley and I, we code on the weekends as a pastime. I'm like,
what?
I go fish. Right?
Yeah, right.
So the pandemic had just started, and I said, here, 60 to 90 days, frame something out and let's see what you come up with, and we'll take from there. And we've never looked back. And so we built this incredible software application called Collision Clarity. Okay. It's constantly improved over a 3-year period. Every vehicle that is repaired at our facilities gets that electronic documentation that not only has evidence and explicit documentation for what was supposed to be done, which includes position statements, OE procedures, pictures, videos, all that type of stuff, but also in process verification as well.
Wow.
And so that we repair has, when it's in process as well as when it's finished, a collision clarity application. And you can go through that repair plan, and as you're scrolling through that repair plan, that evidence is popping up and coinciding with that line on the repair plan. And we believe that that's the type of documentation that will be required in the future, and actually is customer deserves.
Yes.
So why shouldn't they have a high degree of confidence they're getting back into a safe vehicle? And why also shouldn't they have a vehicle that at least is going to uphold the maximum amount of value that it can after the accident, even though we know it's going to have a degree of diminished value? Well, that's fine. It can have a degree of diminished value just so it's repaired correctly. And it's a safe vehicle. So, as I mentioned before, I feel like I'm on this transparency crusade because it's a tough environment to compete. We're not transparent.
Yeah. Well, and it allows people to appreciate, because otherwise, for the consumer, this is what I always say, the consumer has no idea. They have no idea what makes one shop different or better or worse or anything from another shop. They don't know. They have no idea. This is a major departure from what most any other shop is doing. And then it allows them to appreciate everything that you're doing. And you're starting, what you guys are doing is starting this, you're taking education to another level. There's a lot of shops that are educating the consumer, which is so important. And they're doing the right thing, and they're showing them, and they're explaining and all of these things. But having this verification, transparency that you're talking about elevates that even more, I think. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I do as well. And it's really, in some cases, it almost feels like unfair competition when you don't have to be transparent.
Yeah.
So many things can be hidden.
Yes.
What we've seen in vehicles, like I said, in the post-repair inspections that we've done, quite alarming. And the amount of paper that was built on them on top of it for it was an improper repair.
Right.
I know that we've made our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
There's an all-out effort by our team through our process to make sure we don't.
Yeah.
To make sure that we have proper structural alignment, we have proper welds, we have proper weld dressing and corrosion protection. So many things to think about and to document, to have that electronically, and to be able to give that to a customer and to a carrier.
Mm-hmm.
This is how the vehicle needs to be done. And then at the end, able to actually see in process documentation of how it was actually done. But lets me sleep at night.
Yeah.
A bit better, even though I don't require a lot, but a bit better. It's a complex world, and it's something that we as an industry have to really, really take serious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People have driving habits, and even just I keep going back to something simple, a relatively simple system that most vehicles have today in that blind spot monitor.
Yes.
And that driving habit of getting used to that warning,
Mm-hmm.
and then the vehicle back from a collision center and it doesn't work, and you make a lane change.
Right.
That's on us.
Yes. Right.
So it's just so critical that not only do we follow procedures, but we document well what we did,
right,
and then verify that that vehicle is working the way that it should be, and that it's going to act the same way if it should have that misfortune of getting into another accident.
Right.
Yeah, mom and dad in their mid 80s, they rolled their Lexus.
Oh no!
This is last year.
Oh.
Coming back from the lake house on a Sunday afternoon, wasn't even late. Mom was in her book. Dad fell asleep. In the meeting, hit the crossover, the culvert, went end over end, rolled the sideways. The car,
wow,
is you can't. It's unrecognizable. You can't tell.
Wow.
Windshield crushed, roof crushed, airbags, of course, all off. They walked away.
Wow. Crazy.
In fact, Dad at 85, he's now 86, he refused to go to the hospital to get checked out.
Oh my goodness sakes.
Part of that was his embarrassment, but they walked away. And so you think about it, if that vehicle had been repaired and done correctly, it could have been a very, very tragic outcome.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, nobody would have questioned it, because you looked at the vehicle, and I still have pictures on it. You're like, man, there had to be a fatality.
Right.
It's crazy. So again, that just reinforced all of us, because everybody went through our organization and family and everything.
Oh yeah.
And we have one huge responsibility. Huge responsibility to make sure the cars are going to respond the way that they're designed.
That's like so powerful. I'm going to interrupt this podcast for just one quick second, because a lot of people wonder, Mickey, what is it that you even do besides host a podcast? Well, I do marketing, and really the biggest thing that I do is help you drive more traffic to your business. And not even just more traffic, but consistent traffic to your business. As a former shop owner, I know how important that is. So if that's something you're interested in, or you just want to talk about marketing or developing your business in general, feel free to reach out. You can visit collisioncentermarketing.com. There's a calendar on there, and you can just book a time that works for you, and we'll set up a phone call. Or you can email or call me, and my notes are down in the description of this episode. But I hope to hear from you. I'd love to help you build your business. But in the meantime, you better get back to this podcast, because it's really good. Yeah, and I think a lot of the lack of transparency comes from fear, and I'll speak for myself as a former shop owner. I don't know, I can't be there to watch everything. You can't watch everybody doing everything, and you are hoping that everybody's doing the right thing. And sometimes things get missed. And so there's this fear of, we show everybody the documentation and all the things that we did. What if my guy or my gal forgot to put this in here and do this. And now we're exposing it for everybody because anybody can backseat drive anything. You can, so I would think, putting my shop owner hat on, that would be the worry of, I don't want to put all this on display for somebody to just come and poke holes in it and find issues. Now, I'm sure you went through some of those misgivings yourself when developing this.
That's sure. It absolutely has that risk.
Yeah.
But the alternative is no documentation. And then if you end up with an issue or the vehicle has an issue down the road, or, heaven forbid, the car gets into another accident and somebody says, well, a system failed or something like that.
Right.
You don't have a leg to stand on. You really don't. Now you're just kind of winging it, trying to defend a repair that you have no documentation to actually back up. In fact, you did. And I do believe that we're going to come into a world in the very near future that's going to be required, because like the example that I use, fast forward into 6 years and then buying a 3-year-old car, which is 3 years in advance of where we are today. Yep. How do you buy that car without explicit documentation of its history? I mean, and at one point, at what point, I hate to say this, but does the government get involved as these cars become more and more connected to each other, to the road, to everything around them? And a higher percentage of cars on the road have advanced driving assist systems and are connected. Yep. At a certain point, there's going to have to be some certificate of validation that the systems are working properly, because now they're interactive.
Yeah.
That's going to happen down the road, whether it's 2 years from now or 6 years from now, it's going to happen. It has to.
Yeah. It makes me wonder also how this would affect, if let's say all the shops jumped on board with this, every shop everywhere jumped on board with this. Makes me wonder how this would change the relationship with the insurance companies versus this. We'll give you this. Well, okay, I want this. All right, we'll give you this. And the back and forth of cost versus this is what we've done. This is the cost. Here's the proof. Because you hear from insurance companies a lot of times, well, we barter and because we're playing like the negotiation game, because they know shops are going to come in high because then they're going to hit low. It's like the typical legal battle. You go in asking for it all because you'll never get it all. It'd be interesting to see how that would start affecting claims on the insurance side with shops, because now it just is what it is. The procedures say this, and we did this, and we're showing you, and now what? There's no interpretation of anything.
Yeah. Like, I think we're quickly approaching that, if we're not already there, where it is what it is. And so if it is what it is, why shouldn't we have to document and then get paid fairly to do so? Again, dating myself as my 40th full-time year, the industry created its own sins. I mean, that's what takes me back, where you didn't want to be transparent with certainly adjusters, and they were playing their game. And you're talking decades ago, but it just was a game, and it really was. It's not anymore, and unfortunately, too often it's still treated that way. And this stuff is pretty cut and dry.
Yes, right.
I'm not talking about how you price it or anything like that. I'm just talking about what needs to be done.
It's
pretty interesting. This is even a couple of years ago. We have an advisor. He's actually retired from a major insurer, and so I've known him for a long time. And so he did some work with us, and still does from time to time. But he made a great point. He said, I know the amount of attention that you put to your process of repair plan. I know that you have multiple sets of eyes, and you're interpreting the research that was done, and you're going through in a very high level of detail, and you're documenting in that repair plan, and you believe that this is the right thing to do, right? And all of our people like shaking their head. Absolutely. He goes, well, how is that negotiable? He says, I'm not talking about price. That's
Yeah.
Different discussion. I'm talking about how are those what line items are you going to leave out? If you believe that they're necessary, you're not going to leave any out.
Right.
So it just, if we believe that we are closely and fastly approaching one way of repairing cars, it's time to be transparent and level the playing field. You have a education requirement level for the shop, just skyrocketing, right?
Yes.
I'm blown away how it seems like every location, especially the ones that have multiple certifications, that work for some of the larger dealer groups that have 15 different brands.
Yeah.
There's a portion of the staff that's always training, whether they're doing online training or they're off-site training, or so the education requirements are just going through the roof for the shops.
Yeah.
The education level, this is no dig on the insurer, they can't possibly keep up. It's impossible. So the education level of the local adjuster that's still coming out is actually going the other way, drifting the other way. And if you think about it, it was probably the 90s where the industries kind of came together around iCar.
Yep.
A lot of claims offices were iCar Gold. And, if you were shopping forward thinking, you certainly were committed to iCar training. And at least you had a baseline of discussion. And you get a little of that with iCar today, but everything is so manufacturer specific.
Yes.
And if you don't have the education level, it's like we're Lucid certified in our Menor location. We did fairly large amount of work on the front end.
Okay.
It was in the $35,000 range.
Okay.
So we were struggling with the one insurer over that. And I finally got involved because the customer had asked me to. We still had some bit of a short pay, but it was an insurer that was insisting writing their own. And I said to the local supervisor, I said, I've been doing this a long time. I can write an estimate on a Lucid probably as quick and as efficient. I feel like I can match anyone, right?
Right.
Estimate. But ask me to write a repair plan. Everything I write is going to translate into a work instruction.
Right.
For the technician. Now I'm going to sweat.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's a sweat, right? Because that's a whole different ball game.
Yes.
Right. I said, I don't have the education level that our people have that have gone through the training.
Right. Of course.
The repair planner that wrote this vehicle and all the training he's gone through, the technicians that have touched it, everything that they've gone through. So how in the world is a policyholder going to get a fair settlement if somebody's insisting on writing it and they don't have the education level? Why isn't that certified shop considered the expert? And maybe there's some discussion around whether it be rates or allowances or stuff like that. But the repair plan as written stays intact because that's what was done.
Great point.
So it's just, we're in a time in the industry where something needs to change. And it is absolute transparency where we have to really level the playing field by agreeing one way to repair these vehicles, guided by the manufacturer. And then like you said, Mickey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Now that's fair competition.
Yeah.
That really, but when so much is hidden.
Yeah.
And, hours attract technicians and, it's just the whole thing gets really, really muddied up for me.
Yes. It's a great point. And there are other things that I want to talk with you about, so many things, and I want to be mindful of time because I know people don't have all day. Although a lot of people listen to this while they're driving in the car or at the gym or something like that. And I don't want to give people too much. And I feel like these two things, the transparency with the documentation piece and having your compass, having your reason why you do what you do, your mission statement, let's call it, like those those three things tie in so importantly together with what you're talking about. It's so powerful. So I think my last question would be, if there's a shop listening, and there's so many shops out there that there's shops out there that are still doing the exact same thing that they did 15 years ago when I came on the scene. 40 years ago, like when you came on the scene. There are shops out there that have made very little progress. They just do what they do. Like you were saying, our team often gets in its own way because they think they've been doing it for so long that they've got it all figured out. So my question for you would be, what would be your challenge to a shop listening to this right now that you'd want to put out there for them to something to get started on? Or I don't want to feed you the answer. So you tell me what's your thought?
Well, I'll go through our thought process, and we have a tagline that says restoring customer confidence, one safe and proper repair at a time. And we had to realize really that customer confidence when it comes to collision repair is pretty low. And unfortunately for good reason. So we had to really establish what our why is, really. What do we get up in the morning to do?
Yeah, right.
Everybody on that page. And I think it's important, as shop owners or organizations, to really dive into that. Hey, what are we after? What is our why? Yes. And so for us, that's what it is. And to do that, we've got to have feel it's important to have extensive documentation. The complexity of these vehicles today and the way that it's growing like out of control, it seems like, forced us to really do a lot of research and reading prior to. Diving into these vehicles and kind of learning along the way will ultimately get us in trouble, and probably some pretty expensive stuff as well.
Yeah.
When you create your own mistakes or shoot yourself in the foot because you did something without actually understanding even the sequence in which things come apart.
Right.
So my message out to the shops is really get self-committed to documentation before you touch the car.
Yeah.
And that's just important. And whether it is a vehicle that you may know or not, getting your team into that habit, into that discipline, that this is what we do every single time. Be out of that situation of pulling the documentation after you've run into an issue, you've run into a problem.
Right.
And that's, again, growing up in the business, that's the way we did things.
Yes.
Right? If all else fails, going in the direction, right?
Yeah.
That's the way that your experience was really your biggest strong point. That's really what your experience was drove today. That like I said, that could be the biggest detriment. Now, right. Experience is one thing, but if your experience is being put ahead of actually doing the research and doing the reading, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, and before you get yourself in trouble. A quality verification process strategically through. It doesn't have to be, it's not like you have to stand over somebody's shoulder, but you have to mark different points of the process where it's inspected and then be able to convey to your team why that's important. This is not to create this is to assure that we're putting a safe and proper repair back on the road, that we're putting our customers back into that vehicle, because that's what we want. We want them to be safe. We want them to be back into the vehicle. We want their confidence restored.
Yeah. Back to the why.
Yeah, because of that. So whether, you're more traditionally run or, a team environment or individuals, or, it doesn't matter how you compensate, you can still put quality assurance, number of areas. And one would be after structural repairs, validating everything from weld quality to corrosion protection and that and verifying structural measurements, that type of thing. Another point could be as a vehicle is entering the booth, what's masked off, what's bagged off, what's finished. It's another good one. You can really pick, and if you pull your technicians together and say what points, if we're going to pick 5 points where we want to inspect vehicles, to ensure that our product is consistent in the way that goes out, those points be, and they will tell you. And that was a lot talked about out in California at the AXO event, is that eighth form of waste, which is the people part, even those great resources untapped.
Yes.
About, are people thinking that they can't get involved, they can't improve, or they can't make a suggestion, or they can't call out something they see as not good.
Right.
They feel that way, they're apprehensive, then you're gonna struggle. But if they feel it's a safe environment, and that we're all here for that why, it's all here to support what we're here to do, then it's much more accepted.
Yeah.
Again, unfortunately, in our industry, too much has been made of, different technicians critiquing other technicians' work. That's when it was more about this, shaping that vendor versus are we technically correct in this repair?
Right. Yeah, a lot of really great. I have so many good notes here. So I'm gonna wrap it up. So I think the first thing is establishing your why and making sure the whole team's on board with that there's the buy-in from everybody. And then creating the process, whatever that process is going to look like, that supports the why, and having all those documentation for you guys and your team, and I'm sure for everybody, will help support that why. And you said one word that I think is really important is the consistency of the process for the why. It's like, because if you give the team an option to do whatever it is, guess what's most likely not going to get done whenever it's an option? Because we always default to the least amount of work that needs to be done.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why with standard work and standard operating procedures,
right,
they often fail because we don't make it a discipline to execute them every time, whether we think it's still or not.
Right.
I mean, you think about it, you get on that. I've been traveling crazy the last 8 weeks, so a lot of airplanes.
Yes.
Team out there going through their checks systems, or that plane pushes back from the gate. And you would imagine that a really high percentage of the time, they're not finding a defect, right?
Right.
And if they were finding a defect every other time, we'd be going, whoa, what's going on with these aircraft? But you have to figure that a high percentage of the time that they're actually not finding a defect, they're verifying that everything is correct.
Yes.
Well, you would hate for them to get, callous to that or lazy and say, that's passed and good the last 10 times, they're all good.
Right.
But you're counting on them to inspect with the intention of finding that defect if it should be there.
Yes.
Right. And that finding that one time that potentially, makes what would have been an unsafe vehicle safe.
Yeah.
Is important. So it's no different than the analogy of the airlines. It's important that we inspect every vehicle, and we inspect it with routine, and with the same intention, like we mean it.
Right.
Inspect, mean it, not just the check form. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
They're actually looking, and we're realizing how important that investment of time to actually look. And when we find something, it's not beating somebody up. You're essentially celebrating. We found the defect.
Yes.
We're going to correct. We're going to correct it. And we talk about even, as you go through quality assurance throughout the process, if you find that defect, if you isolate it to the step that created the defect, correcting it's no big deal.
Yes. Yeah.
When you let it go downstream, and worse yet, get to the customer.
Right.
And then have to rework it. Then it becomes pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, Michael. So many good things. I feel like, all the listeners are at different places with their shops and what they're doing with their shops. And I feel like all the things we touched on today, everybody's going to be able to take away something, if not more than one thing, a lot of things. And And so I appreciate you speaking to so many different levels of shops where they're at. Like you said, the shops that are doing a great job are not getting the reward and the glory that they should be getting. Yet at the same time, that doesn't change the why. It shouldn't change the desire to do what's right. And we don't do what we're supposed to do because of the glory. We do what we're supposed to do because that's what we're supposed to do. And we stick with that, remember the why. It keeps going back to the why. And I love the statement, and I wrote it down. You said something needs to change. In our industry, something needs to change. And it's a perspective shift, I think, from everything that you're saying. If we change our perspective, the actions will follow. So
yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I've learned and I work on, because it really certainly wasn't a strength early on in my career, is just be willing to hear your people out. Even when it's maybe something that you don't enjoy hearing.
Right.
And be understanding that, yeah, sometimes they're going to be a bit more profound or exaggerated in whatever the situation is. But your people, the ones that are doing the work every day, are the ones that will help fix the issue you might be having, or develop a better process.
Totally.
That's actually sustainable. They're the ones that they have the best ideas. It's crazy. You have to be willing to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just be open to it. And they have to know that they're safe to be able to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Creating that safe place. Well, I appreciate you, Michael, for coming on and sharing all of this with me. I just love how raw you are. I love how transparent you are with all the things. And I'm going to put in the show notes Michael's contact information. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to him. Also, if you want to be part of the DCR Systems, they're very particular with the shops that they bring in to participate with his group, understandably so. But if it's something that you're interested in getting more information about, then his information is in the show notes as well for that. Anything that I missed? I know we went a little over on time, but I feel like it's so good. I'm not upset about it. Anything else? Any last notes you want to take us out on, Michael?
You're right. We could talk for hours.
Yes.
But I think just leaving everyone with this. This is an industry that requires a lot of responsibility. What we do is not easy, right? As collision repairers, what we do is not easy. And it's going to continue to get more and more challenging. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge responsibility.
Yes.
For us. And so making that change and really deciding how do we need to change our business? What changes do we have to make to be sustainable in the future really is what I would be discussing with my team. Yeah. We discuss that all the time, and we have different, healthy debates of really directional items, but everybody's on the same page of wanting to deliver that safe and proper repair and wanting to do everything that we can to assure that we're going to do that on a consistent basis. Yeah. So yeah, embrace the change.
Yes.
Realizing that, like I said, what we do is super important and is a huge responsibility, and really set your business up for the future. And think about really how precise we're going to have to be for documentation in the future. These are safety machines on wheels.
Yes.
And so what we do is super, super important and is a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Great point. Perfect. Well, I need to say no more. Thank you, Michael. You hit that spot on. So good. Michael Giarrizzo, President, CEO of DCR Systems. Thank you for coming back on with me again. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure is mine, Mickey. This is a lot of fun.
Yes. And thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Body Bangin' Podcast. We will see you next time. Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.